Hello everyone, welcome to the BusinesKey Podcast with your hosts Ochiko and Debbie. So today we got the latest news on one of the biggest streaming giants. Over to you, Debbie.
Okay, thank you, Ochiko. So, as you mentioned, there's news with regards to one of the world's largest streaming services, and that's Disney Plus. So essentially, Disney Plus have announced plans to combine its content with Hulu. So rather than the content solely existing on separate apps, there'll be an app where you can stream both Hulu and Disney Plus content together. Just for a bit of background on Disney Plus and Hulu, so Disney actually co-owns Hulu with NBC Universal, but I think traditionally, I would argue, many people would perhaps consider the audiences or the core audiences for Hulu and Disney Plus to be slightly different. I think Disney Plus's audience is probably the whole family, so from children right up until the adults in the family, whereas Hulu perhaps is more steered at the moment towards adults. So it's an interesting move in terms of them announcing plans to combine the services onto one app. Just to note, Disney did say that for now, you will still be able to stream, or when this joint app does launch, if it does launch, you will still be able to have Disney Plus and Hulu as standalone apps, but they do have this intention to put them both together. So what are your initial thoughts on that, Chico?
So for those that don't know, last year, for those that don't know, last year, Disney announced in their results that they lost $4 billion on the Disney Plus part of the operation. So they basically got a lot of work to do in terms of making it profitable, making Disney Plus profitable. So they definitely got to do something drastic. So it sounds interesting. They're not really, doesn't sound like they're complementary, but we'll wait and see, how that does.
So on face value, I would suggest that Disney Plus, the audience definitely seems more geared towards family. A lot of children-friendly content on there. Some content on there that is more geared towards adults, such as Star Wars and Marvel's franchises. But on the face value, I would argue that it's more towards children. And Hulu definitely seems to be a bit more edgy in terms of their content and definitely more focused towards adult. So I definitely agree. It does seem a bit of a mismatch in terms of the audiences. However, Disney Plus did announce that they lost 4 million subscribers in the first 3 months of 2023. So as you rightly said, the business is not profitable as a business segment. Disney Plus is not profitable. It's had massive losses. I mean, when you're seeing losses in the billions, I mean, that is a cause for concern. And not only that, it seems as though perhaps the audiences aren't satisfied because they are leaving the subscription in droves. So it definitely appears that Disney Plus are thinking, let's think outside of the box and let's think of something new in order to see if they can try to, at least reduce the losses, if not, get Disney Plus onto the road to becoming profitable.
Is part of it that they're not, I would imagine, did they overprice some of the programs that they bidded for, perhaps?
Yeah, that could be, because I think they would have a lot of original content and content that they've perhaps commissioned to be developed, and perhaps they spent a lot of money in terms of commissioning these shows and these films, and perhaps that's also contributing to their losses, because it's these huge outlays, because Disney Plus is still relatively a new service, and they just haven't seen the profits or the revenues that have outweighed this outlay that they've spent.
But on the other hand, maybe they might have had to win the contract in the first place. So
and also to entice customers in the first place, you need an offering that would enable customers to feel that the subscription price each month is worth it. So it's almost like a planned loss. You expect this initial outlay, but I think perhaps the company is worried because the losses seem to be getting greater as opposed to reducing. Also, there are some fears from some current Disney Plus and Hulu subscribers that with this joint content being on one app, that the streaming price for that app might be greater. So I think some current subscribers or people in general that may be interested in these services are worried that the subscription fee will go up for the joint service. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's definitely a cause for concern, especially, with the cost of living crisis and so on, with so many people struggling, and inflation and so on. So yeah, that's definitely a cause for concern. Yeah, it remains to be seen, how they manage to balance the books there. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think it will cost money to merge the offerings into one app, and you're going to have to build systems in order to keep customer data safe and ensure that they can, access the content. So I definitely think there will be a cost to Disney Plus to put out this new app, of course, development costs, maintenance costs, etc. So I think invariably, particularly as the business is reporting a lot of losses, I think it most likely will lead to a higher subscription cost. Whether that is enough to stop the hemorrhaging of Disney Plus in terms of the losses, I'm not sure. But I think it's interesting that this is one of their approaches, and it will just be interesting to follow it and just to see how things progress as a result. I think I did also see that with the first quarter of 2023 announcement of the loss of 4 million subscribers, that it did also affect Disney's share price. There was a sharp drop because investors are probably a bit nervous about the direction of Disney and the overall performance. And so I think this is the management's way of trying to show that they're doing something to try to combat perhaps the losses, and also to bring in a stronger subscription base for the service.
Yeah, as you were talking, I just realized I'm actually part of the 4 million people that are unsubscribed. And yeah, that was just because I just realized for quite a while that I hadn't really been watching it at all. Not that there wasn't any valuable content. I think maybe it's just a streaming thing in general. I wonder if many of the viewers might feel the same, where I had like a Netflix subscription, I had a Disney subscription, and there was just so much things to watch. Like sometimes it can be overwhelming in some ways. Like it just feels like you got like a mountain of things to watch. So in the end, it's, you just end up not really getting around to watching all the programs that there is, just because there's just so many.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, time is a finite resource, and so when there is just a lot of choice, you end up maybe choosing none, because what do you choose to invest your time in? It's quite difficult to decide. And I think one thing, because you mentioned Netflix, I think one thing that perhaps Netflix had as a slight advantage is they tend to have a lot of quite interesting releases throughout the year, and these releases, some titles tend to get a lot of attention. So if you recall, for example, The Tinder Swindler, when that came out, it was all over the place. Everybody was talking about it, and it meant that if you hadn't watched it, you were going to try to watch it. We talk about this plethora of choices in terms of what to watch on streaming services. Well, in that time, it was make your way over to Netflix, because you have this, interesting documentary that everyone's talking about. Same thing with something like The Tiger King, or with most recent, there was a drama called Wednesday, which was in the top 10 of Netflix worldwide for a number of months, actually. So, if you hadn't watched it, it was almost like you're missing out. Whereas I don't think I can say the same for shows on Disney. I don't think they've had as many must-see titles in the past year, let's say. This is not to say that their movies, particularly obviously they have the Marvel franchises, don't do incredibly well, but perhaps these are more infrequent. Maybe these are more cinematic releases, and maybe people watch them on Disney Plus as and when. So they don't have this same viral impact where you have to watch it then and there, or even something like Squid Game, which when that was released, it was very, very popular for Netflix, and it meant that you wanted to watch it then and there. So it brought in a lot of eyes. And I think one of the most valuable currencies these days is attention. And, what will enable you to keep your subscription, what would deem your subscription valuable, is this app is enabled to keep my attention because the shows are really engaging and everyone's talking about it.
That's actually a great point. Yeah, I don't know if they actually have the top 10 on Disney Plus, if they have like a top 10 trending.
I'm not sure. I've actually not
Mhm.
used the Disney Plus streaming service.
Okay.
But if they don't have it, I think it's definitely something that they should implement, because it also just encourages people to, watch certain shows. Sometimes, as you said, you might be struggling to know what to watch. Well, this is a curated list of what's the most popular. So perhaps in there could be something for you that might pique your interest.
Yeah, would agree.
So do you have any sort of general thoughts? It's a bit of a tough question. I think if Disney Plus knew the answer, they would implement this. But what do you think are some of the things they should think about in terms of making their business profitable, turning things around? I don't know myself. So.
I think they probably have to do what they've been doing, which is to really analyze, look at all the costs, and to really do a deep analysis of how what impacts, if any, is it having on the profit number, and if not, then give it a review to say, actually, do we still need to do this? So I believe that's what they've been doing. They've employed like a new, the CEO was somebody that was there before. I think his name is Iger.
Yeah.
Iger, and he was there before, so they brought him back. So that looks like what he's been doing. Unfortunately, he's announced some redundancies to some positions already. But yeah, absolutely. That I imagine would be the thing to be looking at in terms of really analyzing the cost to see what they need to stop doing, basically, what avenues they might need to stop doing, and then in terms of growing the profit number, I guess.
I mean, I would say, just to cut in there, so I definitely agree with you there in terms of reducing the cost base. But I think in terms of increasing revenue, I think just as what we were speaking about, trying to create viral moments, there should be certain shows or certain moments where people are talking about Disney Plus, and Disney Plus seems like the app that you need. And I'm not sure that they've quite caught on to that yet. I think also perhaps if they have quite large deals with certain actors or franchises, sort of going back to that cost piece, just seeing if they can find ways to reduce that. I think that is actually really, really key, really fundamental. Because I think, Disney is an iconic brand. They definitely have big titles, but I think they need to see if they can find, maybe even find new creators, new content that they can put on their platform, and just give things a chance, see where they land, and see if you can receive a viral moment. I think perhaps it might be the wrong move to just try to be safe and stick in with your big, blockbuster or the well-known, cartoons, for example, or films, for example. I think people are looking for, the extra, the edginess, something that's going to be really interesting, really, strange or odd, or just, really fascinating. I think that is what people will flock to in droves. I think the, normal titles that they have will be great for things like Christmas, where families at home and you have more time to watch your favourites. But I think perhaps maybe just being a bit edgier with their new titles, and perhaps that way you can also afford to pay less, because it's not the big time actors, big time producers. It's something a bit new. Then you can have something like a Squid Game, or something like a Tiger King. You actually give yourself the opportunity to have these big moments, but you have to take that risk. So I would probably say that might work in terms of raising their revenue share.
Yeah, I suppose, as they say, content is king. So I think a lot of it will be down to the contents itself.
Yeah, maybe also like an ad option on the service as well, if they're not doing so already, as another way to bring in revenue. That might be a bit unpopular, but if they market at a slightly lower price for the subscription, people might be willing to give it a try. Maybe if they're not nuisance adverts, or adverts perhaps maybe just at the end of a TV show or the start, as opposed to adverts periodically through the show, it might decrease the irritation with them. So that might be another avenue they could go down in terms of increasing their revenue. But also we'll see how this planned new app with Hulu goes. Perhaps that can also be a key element for them. But I think it's an interesting one. It's something that we'll keep an eye on. But we're definitely interested to know your thoughts. So please give us a comment and let us know what you think about Disney Plus's plans to merge a streaming service with Hulu. Do you think it will be successful? Do you think it makes sense from a marketing perspective? Would you subscribe to it? And what are your thoughts on Disney Plus itself and their potential ways they can, turn things around and reduce their losses and eventually become profitable?
Yeah. Only thing also I'd add is if you're also one of the people that have unsubscribed as well, but interesting to understand what your reasons for that was. So unsubscribing to Disney Plus. It'll be interesting to understand what your reasons were for that, and just to give some more context, just to understand what different reasons for that was as well.
Agreed. And what would cause you to resubscribe? But we hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. So feel free to get in contact with us if you want to share any thoughts or ideas, if you have any topics that you want us to talk through or take a deep dive on. Please feel free to message us on our social media handles.
Yeah, so thanks very much. See you next time.
See you. Bye.